we already discussed about the overloading method, and we saw this kind of examples. We call this as overloading because one method name can be in the different data type, or it can be different in the parameter list. So this will make a ambiguous invocation. So do you know what is ambiguous invocation? Ambiguous invocation means sometimes there may be two or more possible matches for an invocation of a method, but the compiler cannot determine the most specific match. So there are the same method name, but this Java cannot understand which method that we will invoke. So that's what we call as the ambiguous invocation. And this ambiguous invocation will result you an error. Okay? So be careful, like this one. So this is the ambiguous overloading. If you see this one, why it is ambiguous? First, we have the method name the same with the name maximum. This is max, this is max. So first is the method name is the same. The second, the return type is the same, double. Okay. And then the third, the parameter name. Okay, the parameter name is different, only the sequence. Okay. So this one is integer and the other is double. And the other one starts with double and then integer. And you know that double, the data type double can be referred to the integer. And the data type integer can be referred to the data type double. And it depends on the numbers. So if you put 1, the result in double will be 1.0. Okay. So this kind of problem, it will cause the ambiguous overloading. So please do not make such this kind of method when you want to make your method. If you want to make your method, it is good if you just explain with different name. Okay, then what is formal parameter? What is actual parameter? You know that the formal parameter is the parameter in the method. Okay. The actual parameter is the parameter that you use in the statement to invoke the method. Okay. So this is the actual parameter and this is the formal parameter. Okay. Please pay attention on the difference. A method with a return value should declare the method with return value type, true or false. A method with a return value should declare the method with return value type. The answer is true. Okay. So whenever we create a method, there should be the return value type. So like this one, if we want to use double, okay, then the return value should be double. Now in this case, Some of this value, this is num1 is integer. Okay, so you need to be careful, because if it is integer, while you are going to return a double value. The same with this one, yeah. You want to return the double, but the num2 is integer. Okay. So what is the difference between overloading methods and ambiguous invocation? So in the overloading methods, yeah, you use the same method name, but there are many differences. Okay, there are many differences on the parameters or the return value. But in the ambiguous invocation, you have some similar data type. So for example, this one, yeah, the maximum function here will return double, but the parameter list contain integer, which one of the parameter will be the return value. Okay, so it is an ambiguous. So there's the difference between the overloading and the ambiguous. Okay, questions, comments? No, then I will continue. The last part on this PowerPoint is how to deal with the local variables. So the local variable, yeah, you need to figure out that it is a variable inside a method. So we need to understand the scope. If we have a method, then you can define the variable which is only in the method. So the part of the program where the variable can be referenced. So the scope of a local variable starts from its declaration and continues to the end of the block that contains the variable. A local variable must be declared before it can be used. You can declare a local variable with the same name multiple times in different non-nesting blocks in a method. But you cannot declare a local variable twice in nested blocks. What does it mean? Let's see with examples. Okay? You know about the for loop. Okay? Whenever we do the for loop, we will use one variable, for example, I. So I will be the variable to indicate the initial value, the starting value, or the ending value. If it is integer I equals to 1, so we want to put the variable I is as an integer. And then, yeah, we know that the scope of this I is in between this for loop. The scope of this I will be from the first of the for loop until the end of the for loop. Okay. What about the J? So the J, because it is inside of the for loop, so J will be from the beginning of this declaration until the part of the for loop. Okay. So that's what we call as the scope. Can we use J here? No. So there should be a scope. Okay. You cannot out of the scope. So there's another example. When we have these local variables, we know that this I, yeah, this is the variable I. We can define another I in different for loop, because it is different scope. This for loop, after they finish, the I can be deleted. This is from the context in the programming. So you can define another I because the I is in different scope. But if you have this method, and then let's suppose you define the I at the first time. And after you define this I, you define another I in the for loop. So in this case, it is wrong. Because you already have the I here, you cannot define another I in the block. So what is the scope here? The scope of integer I here is only in this for loop. The scope of this integer I is only in this for loop. But the scope of this integer I is in the method. So it means in all the statements of the method, there should be no I. You can have the I, but you cannot use this definition again. When you define again, it will be errors. Okay. So maybe I can just show you with very simple examples. If I make public static void method 2, and then I have the integer I equals to 1, and then integer sum, for example, equals to 0, and then for integer I equals to 1, and then I is less than 10, and then I plus plus, for example, and I have sum plus equal to 1. Okay. As you can see now, there is an error about I. Why? Yeah, the error message is duplicate. Because we have already the definition of I. So you cannot define I anymore. So in this case, you can just remove this one. It will be fine. So the variable I will be in the scope of this method. And you can use I anytime. But if I have like this one, integer j, for example, okay, let me just use j, for example. And then I have another for loop, which is another j. Yeah, that is fine, because j will be only in the scope of the first for loop, and then after that, the program cannot understand where is the j. So you need to define another variable, the same name, this is j, but it is in other loop. That is okay. So the scope of the local variables might be something important. For example, this one. Yeah, we have the x, we have y. Okay. Oh, okay. This is the same with what we already saw before. If it is the I equals to 1 and then I equals to 1, yeah, this is okay. Because I is in the scope of this for loop, and then I is declared again in different for loop. But this one is not correct because we have integer x already defined in the first line, and then we define again integer x inside the for loop. So x is already defined, so you cannot define again here. So this is not correct. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is about the local variable. You know what is local variable? This is variable in the particular method. And then you need to know about the scope. You can declare a local variable with the same name multiple times in different non-nesting blocks in a method. True or false? Yeah, the answer is yes, true. Okay, so you can declare a local variable with the same name multiple times in different non-nesting blocks. Okay, non-nesting block means this is already nesting and this is nesting. So you can define the same name in different non-nesting blocks. So it is not in this nesting. It is in the different nesting. Okay. Okay, now you understand about the methods with written values. You understand about methods with written values, and you already learned about the scope of the local variables. So on Monday, we will do practice about these methods because there will be no time to do the Quorum practice for next week. So on Monday, let's do practice together with me. And the mid-exam will be from the beginning until methods. Okay. So the scope of the mid-exam from the beginning until the methods that we learned until today. Okay. Okay, any questions, comments? Okay, yeah, I will upload